Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome to our very first installment of our Wellness Wednesdays. Today, the topic is female hormones, and we are happy to have Dr. Alyssa Christoforou. She's a naturopathic doctor that focuses on the whole family health, serving both men and women from infancy onward. Her primary practice focuses on women's health concerns, hormone imbalances, digestive disorders, autoimmune disease, and more. Her guiding principle is the healing power of nature, and I tend to agree. So, Dr. Alyssa, I will let you take it away.
Thank you so much for having me, Candace. I'm so excited to dive into this topic, all about female hormone imbalances. It's something I see a lot in my practice. Like you mentioned, I see a lot of women's health concerns, and hormone imbalances is one of the things that we look into, definitely one of the things going on. So diving in, today's little talk will kind of have four parts to it. I'm going to talk about the symptoms, like what does your body tell you that may indicate a hormone imbalance is going on? What causes hormone imbalances? Things to do for testing to investigate a little bit deeper, and then some things you can even do to, as far as treatment ideas and things to even get started on to address those imbalances. So diving in, hormone imbalances, when we talk about female hormones, there's three major ones that we're looking at. We're looking at estrogen, we're looking at progesterone, and we're looking at testosterone. Testosterone is often forgotten in females. It's often thought about a male hormone, but we need it as females too. That's actually how we get our estrogen. And there's other androgens at play too that really kind of go into this whole picture of hormones. So imbalances could be anything from estrogen dominance or estrogen excess. When there's too much estrogen, that's often associated with not enough progesterone and progesterone deficiency. It could be estrogen deficiency, so not having enough estrogen. It could be testosterone dominance. This is most commonly associated with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or it could be testosterone and androgen deficiency. This is something that we see really at any point in a woman's reproductive life, but especially common kind of around the perimenopausal time, and often associated with estrogen deficiency as well. So again, you can kind of have any one of these combinations: excesses, deficiencies, not enough of one, too much of another. That's kind of what hormone imbalances are. So now diving into symptoms, how would you know, what are signs and clues that might indicate you have a hormonal imbalance? Well, menstrual problems, anything like irregular periods, heavy or painful periods. Uterine fibroids could be another one. Fibroids are growths that develop in the uterus, in or around the uterus. And this growth can be stimulated by estrogen. So it's often seen as a symptom in high estrogen states. Fibrocystic breast issues. So estrogen also stimulates proliferation of the ducts in the breast. And this is classically, women will experience cyclical fluctuations, kind of breast tenderness, breast swelling, breast pain, associated with how your hormones are changing through your cycle. Another one is mood swings. This is a big one. So anything from anxiety, depression, irritability, either in the premenstrual time, kind of before your period or during your period. And this is because both estrogen and progesterone have really tight links with neurotransmitters, which are kind of chemicals that affect brain function. So estrogen, for example, has an effect on the neurotransmitter serotonin. That's the chemical that boosts mood. It's the happy one. So when we have low estrogen, for example, that can cause low serotonin symptoms. Symptoms like depression, sleep difficulties, hot flashes, changes in appetite, headaches. And for any of you ladies that are listening that are around the perimenopausal time, these symptoms might sound very familiar. Again, your estrogen is declining at this point in your life, and you're getting things like hot flashes, sleep disturbances, mood irregularities. So again, it could be due to serotonin and estrogen.
Yeah, and then, for myself, where I'm, because of my history with breast cancer and the medication that I'm on, I'm only 37, but they've shut off all of my estrogen. So I get the joy of dealing with a lot of those symptoms. And it's funny that some of them I wouldn't have thought of, but now thinking about the last year or two and how I've been feeling, it does definitely make sense that you don't always link estrogen to all kinds of things in your body. You don't really understand the complexities that these hormones can play, not just in your reproductive system, but just generally.
Generally, and how many people are dealing with mood issues, especially depression, and the number one medication prescribed for depression is SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, that allow a little bit more serotonin to be circulating around in your system to lift up your mood, bring upon happiness. But rarely, do the doctors that are prescribing these medications really do a deep dive into hormones. And especially for females, as the topic of today, it's really, there's such a tight link there between your hormones and neurotransmitters and vice versa, right? Low serotonin levels can actually perpetuate a little bit more of the low estrogen symptoms. So absolutely. And yeah, to your point, it doesn't have to just be in the perimenopausal time. You could have low estrogen at any point. I've seen women in their 20s with low estrogen, kind of with these estrogen deficiency symptoms. So yeah, there's no kind of rule that you got to be high in early life and then low in later in life. Any of these imbalances could happen at any point, pretty much from puberty onwards. And then progesterone, so we talked about estrogen and serotonin link. Progesterone is related to GABA. So progesterone has a metabolite that actually acts at the GABA receptor in the brain and increases GABA activity. GABA is a chemical that promotes a sense of calm. So that's really implicated kind of in anxiety states, hyperactivity states. So low GABA, low progesterone that promotes low GABA symptoms, you might get things like anxiety and sleep difficulties too. So it's another important thing to think about. Again, this link of hormones and neurotransmitters. Another symptom, weight gain. That's a big one, especially for females. Preferential deposition of weight around thighs, buttocks, kind of lower extremity, and kind of lower abdomen. They'll describe it kind of like a pooch. That could be all hormonal mediated by hormonal imbalances. Fatigue and low energy is another big one. Sleep difficulties like insomnia or poor quality sleep, either having a hard time falling asleep or falling asleep okay, but then not staying asleep through the night.
That's me.
Yeah. And again, we talked about this kind of with the serotonin and GABA, both of those imbalances causing sleep difficulties. So this could be due to low estrogen, low progesterone, and the low GABA, low serotonin as well. Another one is low libido. So this is especially common in women going through the perimenopausal or menopausal time in their life. Again, because estrogen is declining at that point, testosterone is declining. Testosterone is really a major hormone that kind of governs libido. But again, it can occur at any other point in a woman's reproductive life as well. And the hormonal effects here on libido are direct and also indirect. I mean, we're talking about fatigue, sleep difficulties. You might not have a libido if you're exhausted all the time, if you're not feeling well, if you're anxious, or if you're depressed. So it could be directly caused by hormones and then indirectly by some of those other symptoms that hormone imbalances can produce.
For women, like you always hear about, when you're perimenopausal or menopausal and women go on some kind of a hormone replacement. Is it always just estrogen, or are women given testosterone as well?
Absolutely. Women are given testosterone. Women are, and most formulations of even the bioidenticals have a blend of estrogen and progesterone. And then there's certain cases where testosterone will be done, or another androgen called DHEA. That's another one that's kind of a precursor to testosterone, a little bit less potent and a little bit more versatility because your adrenals can also use DHEA. Yeah. So absolutely. That's common in kind of bioidentical hormone prescriptions, is to see any variation of those, whether it's a cream form. A lot of them are vaginal creams, so the hormones act a little bit more locally and topically, especially because vaginal dryness is a big complaint around that time in life, just because again your hormones are declining, a lot of changes are going on in your body. The hormonal therapies that are a little bit more, frankly, actually giving progesterone or estrogen doesn't just have to be in the perimenopausal time. There's times that, like in your case, breast cancers or other extreme things that happen that really just tank the hormonal system. I see that a lot in actually certain infections like Lyme disease. Lyme disease can cause so much inflammation, so much damage to the system. And one of the systems we see kind of what I call collapse or really deteriorate is your hormonal system. So there's other cases in life where, yes, you might need a little bit of replacement therapy just to kind of help move things along, help resolve some of these symptoms. Yeah, testosterone, often forgotten for females, but it's an important player. So speaking of testosterone, another symptom that we can see as part of this hormonal imbalance is skin issues, especially like adult acne, chronic acne that doesn't really respond well to any of the other Accutines or the other interventions tried. And unwanted or abnormal hair growth. So a lot of women will describe, hair on their chin, hair on their neck, hair above their lip, not just like that peach fuzz, but a lot of the hairs are they're different texture, they're thicker, they're darker, they're coarse. This can all be a manifestation of high levels of androgens, so your testosterones. And this is a common thing that we see in PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And kind of the last two symptoms, again, I know it's a lot. You could see that pretty much anything from A to Z can be impacted here, but also headaches. So headaches is a big one. A lot of women who suffer from migraines, there's a big hormonal imbalance that could be a trigger. And a lot of the migraine sufferers will experience, I get a migraine right before my period, like clockwork. And then the last one's fertility issues. So anyone dealing with fertility issues, trouble conceiving, this is a big one in PCOS, again, where you have a lot of high androgens, those testosterones, and not enough estrogen or progesterone deficiency. So those are kind of the symptoms. Again, your body tells you things, your body gives you hints and to when something might be going wrong. Now, what causes this? So we talked about the symptoms, but why do hormone imbalances happen? This is an important thing to talk about because this is where kind of a lot of the interventions and the workup comes from, really getting to the root cause of what the problem is. One is thyroid dysfunction. So thyroid, it's another little organ system as part of your endocrine system. So endocrine, the big three I think about are your thyroid, it sits in your neck right here, your adrenal glands that sit above your kidneys, and then of course your sex hormones that we're talking about. And for females, ovaries are the ones that are making our sex hormones. So thyroid dysfunction, either an underactive or an overactive thyroid, can lead to female hormone imbalances. I see this more commonly in hypothyroidism, which is a very common issue in the population as well. A lot of people have underactive, sluggish thyroid that also
I have all of this. This is great. I'm going to be your first client. This is great.
I'm ready for you, Candace. Yeah.
I take medication for that too.
Yeah. And a lot of the symptoms of thyroid dysfunction can mimic some of those symptoms we talked about of hormonal imbalances: fatigue, low libido, kind of brain fog, slowed cognitive function, depression, all those weight gain. Totally. So you need to look at both to really figure out, where the problem really is. Another cause is blood sugar imbalances, especially high blood sugar and insulin resistance. This is commonly the issue in PCOS, but it can drive other hormonal imbalances that are just associated with an imbalance in estrogen and progesterone. And partially it's because having high blood sugar that's dysregulated, that's inflammatory, and inflammation, that's kind of how it contributes to inflammation in the body that really impacts the hormonal system. Number 3, another big cause I see is liver dysfunction. So the liver is the organ that really bears the responsibility of breaking down your hormones, your estrogen, your progesterone, testosterones, and it does this in 2 phases, phase 1, phase 2. Now this dysfunction, liver dysfunction, could be due to a number of things. One is genetic alterations that make some of those enzymes responsible for clearing those hormones a little bit less efficient than they should be. Another cause of liver dysfunction is lack of the necessary nutrients and cofactors that the liver actually needs to do its job, right? Not having enough of the precursors, your B vitamins, your vitamins A, C, and E, trace minerals like zinc, copper, selenium, magnesium, molybdenum, things to support methylation, things to support sulfation, and glutathione, which is a big kind of antioxidant. So if you're lacking any of these, and if the liver is not working properly, you can actually get a backup of some of these metabolites. Some of these metabolites can actually be more potent and toxic than their parent hormones. So an example of this is a metabolite called 4-hydroxy. It's an estrogen breakdown product. It can bind to and damage DNA if not detoxified properly. So that's a big thing I look into with any of my female patients that have a family history of any kind of hormone specific cancers, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, I look to see how is your liver working? How are you breaking down your hormones? Are you preferring this toxic pathway before hydroxy or more the protective pathways? So again, liver dysfunction can be a big driver of hormonal imbalances.
Yeah.
Another one is digestive dysfunction. So the gut bears kind of the final step of the detoxifying hormones along that chain. Liver kind of does the work first. Then the liver puts the hormone metabolites in the bile. The bile goes out into your small intestine when a meal comes through, and then it's the gut's job to get it all the way out of the body. So the two big things when it comes to digestive dysfunction that can perpetuate hormonal imbalances, first is constipation. So if your bowel is not moving regularly enough, a lot of these toxins, these toxic metabolites that we talked about, that your liver just worked really hard to clear from your body, they can get reabsorbed because things are just kind of sitting there and things are just slowed down. Constipation is a big issue. A lot of people are not, evacuating their bowels as frequently as they should. And another one for digestive dysfunction is dysbiosis. So this refers to an improper balance of the good and bad bacteria and microbes in your gut. Our gut is teeming with microbes, all different types, bacteria, yeast, some that are beneficial, some that are not. When you get dysbiosis, you start to get an overgrowth of those unwanted guys that starts to overpower those good guys that actually help us with a lot of our functioning. And especially if you have more of an imbalance and higher levels of these bacteria that contain an enzyme called beta glucuronidase. This is an enzyme that can actually deconjugate estrogen, again, kind of undoing the work that the liver just did to get the estrogen into this form that can be put into bile and can be excreted out of the body. So those are kind of what we talked about, 4 big areas. The last one that I want to spend a little time on too, because it's super, super important, and I'm seeing it as a big, big contributing factor in today's day and age, are environmental toxins.
Yeah.
We live in a toxic world. Our water, we're getting assaulted from the water we drink, food we eat, stuff we put in our skin, especially as females. I think there's the reason why we see a lot more hormonal imbalances in females compared to males is because we're using all these products topically, cosmetics internally that have a high toxic burden. And when it comes
People
to
forget like that the skin is the largest organ in the
oh yeah,
body. And if you think about like nicotine patches and medication patches, if you're sticking it on your skin and your body's absorbing the medication, why are people not thinking about your skincare products and your makeup and your lotions and your shampoos? And people are
yeah,
dyeing their hair and perfumes and body sprays, and it baffles me that there isn't so much more thought put into that. It just baffles me.
it's such a huge thing. And especially like to your point, the topical route, it's not just what you inhale or what you ingest. Skin is a huge organ, and there's a lot of transdermal absorption of stuff like this is really good for a lot of the toxins. And a lot of them are used, in things like lotions and moisturizers, and they're
that are
marketed as
that are
things.
put on when you get out of the shower and your pores are nice and
Your pores are
open.
nice and open, and blood flow has kind of been
Ugh.
increased to the skin because you just took a nice hot shower, hot bath. Yeah, and the claims like wrinkle free or all the
Oh, and
claims
like
that these products
bath
make.
bombs,
Bath, yeah,
sitting in a tub with just this chemically
yeah.
fuzzy like
No.
my bath bomb is Epsom salt and essential oils.
You got the right idea. That's the
Yeah.
way to go. Yeah,
Smell like $1,000,000.
exactly. And it's
Yeah.
good for you. That's the good stuff to absorb. You want to absorb some of those magnesium salts and Epsom salts.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so toxins, really kind of 2 big ones I want to highlight here. One is the kind of this class of endocrine disrupting chemicals. So these are chemicals that can mimic, they can block or interfere with your hormones in your body. And a lot of these endocrine disrupting chemicals are also carcinogenic. So they can drive cancer formation. They're diabetogens. So they can drive insulin resistance, blood sugar issues, and eventually a person ends up with full-on diabetes. Obesogens too, so they're big drivers of why we're seeing such an obesity epidemic in this country and in our world in general, and just metabolic syndrome. A lot of people with cholesterol issues, blood pressure issues, blood sugar issues, a lot of adiposity and obesity. So
We need a
example,
wellness Wednesday for each one of those
that
subjects
could be a
because
whole nother topic to
I
dive
have a
into.
whole thing about that.
Oh yeah, that's a
about,
whole nother thing,
about the
really.
obesity epidemic.
Yep, and it's kind of overlooked again, and that's a big driver. Obesity and just having a lot of that excess adipose, that excess fat tissue, that's also very inflammatory. And again, we talked about inflammation just being another, at the very basic level, very much kind of a big blockade to hormones functioning properly.
Yeah.
Really, there's kind of four big things when it comes to the endocrine disrupting chemicals that are especially problematic for kind of the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone that we're talking about. The first one is bisphenol A, also known as BPA. You probably see this all the time on little labels, claiming that they're BPA free. Important to note that there's other bisphenols that they can use as a substitute, like BPF and BPS. So it might say BPA free, but they might just be using another bisphenol in there. So look at your plastics, canned foods, canned drinks, water. These can all be sources of bisphenols. Another major class is phthalates. So this is the one that you see a lot in the personal care products, your lotions, your cosmetics, your perfumes, makeups. You'll also get it in a little bit of food packaging and vinyl flooring, vinyl toys. So it's important for kids too that are always kind of playing on these play mats and putting plastic toys in their mouth. A lot of our toxic burden starts in childhood, and then we see it kind of lead to issues when puberty hits. And we're again talking specifically about female hormones, but a lot of the underlying causes might have been brewing way before we actually see the manifestation with the symptoms we talked about already.
Yeah, I mean, that has to be the case. Like, I mean, even just for like breast cancer, more and more we're seeing women my age and younger, early 30s that are just getting ravaged by this disease. And you think, like, what is going on? Like, what is going on around us that healthy women like me,
Yeah.
I've been a health and fitness addict my entire life. I've never been obese. I've never been a smoker. I eat really healthy. I have no family history. I don't carry the gene. Like, what is going on around us that is causing this to happen? And like you said, it's a toxic world, and people need to start paying attention to these
Yeah.
symptoms and seeing people like yourself to
Yeah.
really get to the cause of it before it actually becomes a problem.
Right. And that's a big part of my workup. Every first office visit, I talk about environmental exposures. What are you exposed to? And kind of go through a little bit of a screening questionnaire to see what the burden or the potential toxic burden is, because it is such a big driver of all types of diseases. I know we're talking about hormone imbalances today, but cancer, diabetes, obesity, neurological issues, neuropathies, musculoskeletal complaints, and kind of degeneration of cartilage even. So there's really no system in your body that's spared of these toxins. It's just a matter of kind of certain individuals have more propensity to get, kidney failure or neurological issues, or women getting hormonal imbalances. So I agree. It needs
Yeah.
to be more on people's radars.
Yes.
Um, Parabens are another one. So that's another one that you'll see in personal care products. And it's an estrogen agonist. So it perpetuates and magnifies an estrogen dominant state, kind of binds to those same estrogen receptors and does all the things that estrogen does. So proliferation of breast ducts, we talked about, worsening even fibroids. There's a big link with parabens and fibroids. And last one, polychlorinated biphenyl, so PCBs. You might have heard of PCBs. They've been banned since the late 1970s, but they still exist in our environment as persistent organic pollutants. And now they're found in fatty animals, dairy, eggs, and especially farmed fish. So this is another thing we're going to talk about when we get to kind of like the treatment idea section of probably the number one thing to do is just minimize toxicity and just kind of watch these things to making sure you're not getting any accidental exposures to these chemicals that could be disrupting your endocrine function. And again, it's not just the female hormones, but it'll disrupt your thyroid as well. It'll mess with your adrenals, that we should talk about those being big underlying causes for female hormone imbalances. So again, the whole body, it's all related. Another one, when it's not these endocrine disrupting chemicals, mycotoxins is another one that I want to highlight under environmental toxins. So mycotoxins are these toxic compounds that are found in molds. And this is common. Anytime you get a water damaged building, even contaminated food, there's a mycotoxin specifically called zearalenone. And this is a very estrogenic mycotoxin. So again, it binds to estrogen receptors and causes those high estrogen type symptoms in humans. So it can lead to enlarged uterus, it can alter the reproductive tract, decreases fertility. So talking about, fertility complaints being a big symptom of hormonal imbalance, you got to look at, is there mold in your environment? That's a big question that I have. And then it can change and mess with your levels of estrogen, progesterone too.
Wow. I
Yeah.
never would have thought mold and estrogen.
Yeah. There's, again, a lot of these, they mimic, right? They bind to these receptors, they mess with the system. So endocrine disrupting chemicals, molds, other toxins, even heavy metals, less directly, but they can also kind of, heavy metals we see interfering with liver function. So that's another thing where I will see some of these other underlying causes perpetuate the problem. Those are kind of the big areas. And so then testing, when we're doing testing, at a very basic level, you want to do kind of a hormone assessment to see, okay, where are my hormones at? That's the first question, really. You could do it with the blood. So usually day 3 of your menstrual cycle, you'll want to look at estrogen. That's your follicular phase where estrogen is the dominant hormone. Whereas day 21 of your cycle, that's your luteal phase where progesterone should be, the dominant hormone. And kind of doing that split day blood testing can give you a good idea of what's going on. And oftentimes I see estrogen dominance and progesterone deficiency. So usually we'll see that day 21 progesterone be a little bit lower than it should be. I like to do a urine panel as well, because that urine, what's in the urine, just like we talked about, the liver and the gut doing the detox, the liver tells you the urine panel will tell you how your body's breaking down the hormones, and it gives you clues into the liver function. Again, how is it breaking down? Are you getting more of those toxic buildup, that 4-hydroxy metabolite? Are you clearing it properly? Are there any hints that might show us you don't have enough of those nutrients we talked about? So I like to kind of do both blood and urine testing to look at hormones and just kind of get the baseline of where your hormone levels are at. And then really getting underlying cause specific. So all the causes we just talked about, looking into other hormones. What is your thyroid doing? What are your adrenals doing? What's your blood sugar at? What does gut function look like? Do we need to do specific gut testing to look, like a stool test to look at that idea of dysbiosis? Environmental toxin testing, what kind of specific things do we need to look at to really get to that cause and to figure out what's going on? And that's, of course, very patient specific and usually guided by the intake and things that come up for the individual specifically. And then really, again, treatment, ideally you get after the causes. So testing will highlight a lot of the stuff that might be going on, but even without testing, there's very kind of foundational things that you can do already to make such a big shift in your hormones that'll not impact hormones, but kind of just overall health in general. And that's a beautiful thing about a lot of these gentle kind of basic foundational interventions, kind of in the dietary realm, the lifestyle realm. It's going to impact the whole body, neurological function, gut function, everything, liver function, detox, good energy, good libido, all that kind of stuff. So minimizing toxicity, we talked about this a lot. Just kind of looking around and cleaning up the home. So making sure you're getting clean water, get a good water filter that removes those toxins that might be hiding in our water. Clean food is a big one. So ideally organic as much as possible, especially in important in regards to the dirty dozen, which are kind of like the 12 most heavily pesticides foods, and paying attention to where you're getting, if you're doing animal products, where you're getting your meats from, where you're getting your fish from, where you're getting other foods from. Again, because we talked about fatty cuts of animal meat or dairy or eggs being big sources of those PCBs. So just kind of making sure that you're always emphasizing the highest food quality.
Yeah, and I mean,
Well,
and I even tell my clients who are concerned about things like that to buy local, because if everybody bought local, it's also lowering the carbon footprint, which is ultimately
totally.
lowering the toxicity of our environment. So it's it's a no-brainer to try to just purchase as local as you can
Yeah.
anyway, because it tends to be a much higher quality anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like a twofer.
Yeah, it does. And then it allows you to get to know your farmer and really see like where, the stuff that I'm putting in my body, what's its environment, right? Because it matters too. Whatever it's exposed to during its lifetime, you're getting too. It's this idea of kind of bioaccumulation, that things kind of bioaccumulate up the food chain. So shopping local, supporting your local farmers, the clean stuff, doesn't have pesticides, good practices, it's all really important and goes a long way for, foundational health. The non-toxic personal care products. So we talked a lot about how phthalates and parabens are, really prevalent in sunscreens, lotions, cosmetics. So just looking for things that are phthalate free, paraben free, don't have synthetic fragrances or kind of added chemicals, kind of clean, ideally plant-based products. Also very important for skin issues. That's a big thing that why people might have random rashes and eczema and things like that. So it's not just what you're absorbing, but there could be, local topical aggravation from those products as well.
Yeah, I'm glad I've been able to use a good natural skincare most of my life.
Yeah.
So half of my life I've been using something natural, and
Hmm.
I can feel good about what I use, but it works too. So why not, right?
Yeah. And a lot of brands are catching on. You'll see a lot more of these kind of green, eco-friendly, non-toxic, because there's a need for it. I think a lot of people, the general public is a little bit more aware of this, and then the industry is kind of shifting accordingly. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff you'll see right on the label. Some just saying paraben free, phthalate free. So always looking for those kinds of products.
Yeah, for sure.
Limiting plastics too. Again, plastics is a big source of the BPA. So glass, stainless steel, these kinds of food storage containers and water bottles are much safer than plastic.
What's
So
your thought on silicone containers?
I don't love silicone. I usually kind of the silicone when it's kind of a grip around is okay. But really for what I put my food in, what I put my water in, glass and stainless steel are best. They're inert, so they're not gonna get into whatever it's holding in the container, whether it's your food,
Yeah,
soups,
I thought I was doing better
liquid.
because I bought those like nice zip,
Mm,
silicone ones, because they're, better than the cheap plastic ones. Because I like glass, but they're heavy and I
yeah,
eat a lot of food. So to
yeah,
try to fill my lunchbox with all glass
super
containers, it's a
glass.
struggle. It's a struggle.
Tough. I know. That'll be something maybe we'll see in the next few years, these better inventions for that kind of thing, of more compactable things, but that are still non-toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
hear you on that. You need a whole little, like, you need a cooler to work just to transport your
I
lunch.
literally have a cooler. It's ridiculous. The size of my lunchbox is unacceptable, but I'm just going with it.
Yep. Yeah. You got to do what you got to do when it comes to this kind of stuff, right? And for things for your health.
Yep.
And just even dietary, just focusing on a diet rich in whole foods, minimally processed. Again, a lot of the processing, you'll get a lot of those parabens, phthalates, also as food preservatives. So the closer the food is to its original source, if you can picture it growing on a tree, if you can picture it coming out of the ground, that's best, versus what was the source of this, things that look so far away from food that it's like, is this really food or is it just
Food
chemicals?
products. You
Food
wonder, like,
products.
what if you look at, if and I am very aware of what I eat. I've been logging all of my food for a very long time because of just being an athlete and having to make sure I'm fueling my body appropriately for what I'm doing. But most people don't do that. But I say to my clients, take a picture of
Yeah.
everything you ate in one day and make a little collage and do that for a couple days. And then look at what percentage of that is like food, is like real, like
Mm.
grew from the ground, or made a sound. That's what we say.
Yeah, made a sound.
Grew from the ground or made a sound. Like,
Mhm.
what percentage of that? 10%? Like one of your 6 or 7 small meals? Two? People were meant to eat food. We're human beings, yes, but ultimately we're another animal on this
Yeah,
planet. And we're the only animal that purposefully eats things that like kill us. And not only that, but we like know that it's bad for us and we still do it.
and we still do it. We do it even more so. Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy.
I hear you. Yeah. It's an issue. And
Yeah.
thinking about just That's actually a thing I'm going to start with my patients too. I think journaling in general just gives you this awareness of things that so many
Ooh,
people don't
I'm
even
a big fan.
realize. So kind of
That's
my
another Wellness Wednesday with Dr. Tom, who's going to talk about the psychology of why we keep doing that.
my gosh, yeah, there's a lot at play here, and especially with diet too. A lot of the chemicals there, just like we talked about hormones impacting neurotransmitters, there's a lot of chemicals in food that drive certain cravings and make us feel good. There's this whole branch of food called comfort food. It's comfort food for a reason because it makes us feel good. It comforts us when we're sad. So stuff with food is very complex, but my hope is just to kind of bring awareness that people should know where their food comes from, know what's in their food, and start making better choices
Yeah,
when it
cooking
comes
is a
to,
lost art, and
yeah, that
unfortunately, we're
too.
losing the ability to do that. And that's what kept us alive as humans, and what built cultures and built societies and built our connections with
Hmm.
other people. And food is, you know, in one sense, it gets a bad rap because it can cause all of these health problems. But so people start to like look at food like it's bad, and there's this whole psychology behind
I
it, but like
know.
food is very important, and cooking food together, and there's something about making a meal for somebody that makes me like, I'm a giver and I like to cook for people. But also when I compare that with making something that is super nutritionally dense, something that I know is going to benefit them health wise as well, and it's going to taste good, is like, we have to get back to that kind of
Yeah,
from scratch, like, I made this for you
I
type of
agree.
thing.
That's part of the fun. It's food, it's not just, it's like a culinary experience, it's art, it's flavor. There's so many of the your special senses are involved. That you see something beautiful on a plate, you smell it, then you taste it. It's kind of like a whole sensory experience. And you mentioned there's social things tied into food. How often do you gather with friends around a dinner table, whether it's at a restaurant or at your house? Um, all the big holidays or food is, whether it's Christmas or Thanksgiving, and a big meal is part of it. So there's a lot of complexities that go into diets. And that's for that reason dietary changes aren't easy, because there is so much. There's psychology implicated, there's culture implicated, there's these environmental toxins that we're talking about. There's so many different factors going into food choices. And yeah, but promoting, helping patients get to back to the basics, back to the foundations of clean whole foods, taking an active role in how their food is being made. I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's a process.
it is. But
And since we're on the topic of food, thinking about kind of working on optimizing liver function, working on gut function, there's certain foods that are very kind of cleansing to the liver and help the liver with its detoxification actions. So artichokes, cruciferous vegetables, your broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, garlic and onions, leeks, chives, citrus fruits, dark berries, turmeric, rosemary, all these foods that you can easily just include
you're
daily.
making me hungry.
I know. It's like it's about to be lunchtime, or maybe we could,
Yeah, I'm about to
yeah.
eat. Yeah, I
Um,
like mine.
got
Yeah.
some good ideas for what to put on your lunch salad or
Those
something.
are
I have
things that I cook with on a daily basis. I put turmeric in everything. Berries
yeah,
are definitely the and berries are great because you get the most bang nutritionally
for your buck.
for the amount of calories, and for people who are paying attention to like sugar or
Yeah,
carbohydrates, you get the most bang for your buck with berries.
I love berries, dark berries. Yep, they're packed with antioxidants. They're good in fiber, low glycemic. It's kind of like one of the best fruits in my opinion. Blueberries are my favorite fruits. So yeah, just the easy, and it's so easy. People, when you read off this list, like, oh, I actually like that. Oh, I could do that daily. It's just kind of, again, this bring awareness to like what's actually good and why are certain foods good for certain things. And again, these are all kind of stimulating to liver function. They promote bile flow. Again, bile's where those hormone metabolites are getting locked into. So yeah, easy thing like that. Botanicals too. This is a little bit harder to do in food form, but easy enough to do kind of in tea form. You can find these teas at any grocery store, Amazon, wherever you guys are doing your shopping. Burdock root, dandelion root, milk thistle.
Yep.
I already said turmeric and the active constituent curcumin. So that's an
Yeah.
easy thing to do. Brew a cup of liver tea every
Yeah,
day.
the detox tea that I take
Detox
every
tea.
morning, the Arbonne detox tea
Yeah.
has all of those things you just mentioned and then some. And that's the first thing I put in my body on an empty stomach. That's the first thing
Hmm.
I put in. And then
Yep.
I might have coffee later, but I at least start
You start on a good
it
foot.
starts good.
Yeah.
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 So
And then
we did have one question, and then I think this question is a whole other topic as well. So maybe
Mhm.
just a general answer, but I'm sure we're going to
Sure.
want to come back to it. But what role do hormones play in fitness, specifically for women,
Mm. The
like
big
for
one that
athletes?
the one that I think about here is testosterone. So that's often the forgotten one in females. We think females estrogen and progesterone and males testosterone. But testosterone, it governs things like kind of body composition. It's a big one for how you're distributing your muscle mass. So it's a big thing, you know, again, you think about it in males for boosting, you know, the bodybuilding things or boosting muscle mass. It's very true in females too. So testosterone deficiency, not having enough of that, a lot of women will say, I'm eating so well, I'm working out, and I'm just not getting the results I want. So I say, okay, well, what's going on with your hormones? And usually, if testosterone is low, estrogen is low as well. So they'll have, again, mood issues and sleep issues and all those things we talked about already, symptoms of low estrogen. It governs energy too. So the people that don't have any energy to work out, or they're not giving their maximum during their fitness sessions because they're exhausted, maybe because their thyroid is off or their adrenals are off, cortisol is low, all these other things. So absolutely, hormones are big when it comes to fitness. And we talked about also the kind of the blood sugar piece. That's an important part of kind of
Yeah.
if there's a blood sugar imbalance underlying a hormonal issue, both of those things independently can lead to not getting the results you want from your fitness routine. Whether it's just low energy, you're doing the right things, but the muscle mass and kind of your body's not adjusting appropriately. All of that factors in.
Cool. I like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like I have a lot of testosterone. I feel like I've been very muscular my whole life, but just maybe not muscular, but I can build fairly easily with a, you know, if I'm consistent. I feel like that would be anybody, but I think there are definitely testosterone's important, and I think women should
It is.
definitely pay attention to that, especially people who want to gain size, who are looking to gain weight, who maybe want to compete and are running themselves rampant in the gym and lifting and lifting and lifting and eating and nothing's happening. This is
Yeah,
where instead of just going to, you know, Facebook for answers or Googling, they should consult somebody like yourself and say, this is where I am and this is where I want to be. And am I doing the right thing?
right. And another thing kind of along that same train of thought is the weight gain. When a lot of people, you know, some people work out because they love to work out, it makes them feel good. A lot of people, and you probably see this all the time, their big thing is weight. I need to lose weight, right? I've gained so much weight, I'm not comfortable in my body anymore. They know fitness is an important part of their weight loss goal. And what do we talk about? A major symptom of hormone imbalance is weight gain, especially kind of that lower abdomen, the hips, the thighs, that area. So again, despite their best efforts, they're on the treadmill, they're doing all these things and they're not getting those results. Again, I wonder my question is, what's going on with your hormones? And let's dive in there.
Yeah, my question is, what does your diet look like? I'm a personal trainer through and through. I'm a power lifter. I love exercise. I do it every single day. But when someone comes in and says, I want to lose weight, I say, well, your first few sessions with me should be about what you're eating, not about what you're doing for exercise. Because if you eat properly, you could lose all that weight just walking.
Yeah,
It might not give you the look that you're going for, but if we're talking about straight numbers, I mean, you know, it's all about, you know, it's all about the inside. And
totally.
this is, yeah. And
And a
so
lot of those, yeah, go
I
ahead.
would definitely recommend, like, I have, doesn't happen often, but every now and then you get that client that you can't figure it out. You know, you wonder, like, are they lying about what they're eating? Because if they're really
Mhm.
eating that much and they're really working out this much, like, why are they not losing weight? And this is when I would send someone to you, to take a look at
Yeah.
that.
So the hormones, and another thing too, we talked a lot about toxins, right? A lot of these toxins are fat soluble, meaning your body stores them in fat. So that's another reason why you're, especially in females, these budge, you know, this maybe there's 10 to 20 pounds that just won't budge and it gets in those uncomfortable areas, their lower abdomen, you know, hips, thighs, that whole area. And despite their best efforts, you know, they're eating clean, at least they're reporting to you, they're eating clean, they're working out. And if that doesn't shift, I think, okay, well, your body's clearly storing stuff in here that it doesn't want to necessarily release. So do we need to detoxify in a safe way? Do we need to, again, look at hormones and all these other things that impact, you know, blood sugar, liver, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into fitness goals and weight loss and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was like very informational. And I feel like that was just the surface. I mean, that's just like the general gist of what it's about. And I think that, I want to leave this open for the public to ask specific questions that they might want to know answers to. And I would urge everybody to reach out to you directly, and we will have your contact information posted. Yeah, I would urge people to reach out and ask questions if this jogged anything for you that you want to know. I'd be happy to do another one of these, and maybe narrow it down specifically to maybe athletes, or maybe specifically for weight loss or something like that. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you
And
for having me. This has been exciting. It's been fun.
yeah, no problem. And yeah, and hopefully we'll have you back and we'll learn more about what you do.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. If there's things I didn't cover, if it kind of again triggered something else, a few other little treatment notes I can make. Happy to do any of that. So I'll look forward to that in the next few weeks.
Yeah, fantastic. And
And
I
we'll talk in the
appreciate
future.
everybody for watching today, and just keep your eyes out, because we'll be doing these monthly, and the topics will be very interesting, that's for sure. Varied and interesting. And if there's anything that you'd like to learn about, please let us know, and we would be happy to bring professionals from your area that can help you learn more.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Candace.
You're welcome. Thanks.
All right, take care.